All right, traders, welcome to today's recap. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and today is Thursday, July 19th. A lot of names came out after earnings, so I'll go over those. I don't send those out on Twitter because we go over them live in the trading room as they're coming out. So it's kind of fun. Like even if you're especially if you're in the trades or even if you're not in trades, it is kind of fun to go through the names and see how they're see what their data points are, and go through and see who are the winners and losers. And it really is nice to kind of come up with a couple names that really kind of blew through earnings to the upside, because a lot of times it ignites a whole group for the next day. So, for example, and I'll go over the S&P chart. I think I jumped ahead with earnings. So let me go. While I have the S&P chart, I'll go over that. Basically a small move down here, 35 basis points. Probably going to come back and maybe test this. I do expect choppy waters, for the next week or so with earnings. It's something that I've been talking about every day in the trading room, every night in one of these videos. Just earnings season is a very, very difficult time, I think, to trade because, the market is processing new information as it comes out. You're going to have some names that miss, some names that beat earnings. Hopefully, more names that beat earnings than miss. But the market is really going to be processing the information, and I think it is really a choppy time to trade. Very difficult to read option activity. And also very difficult to trade around earnings. Now there are some really good trades. There are some really good moves that we've been exploiting for moves into earnings. We've done very well with those trades, and I've lined up a couple more. One that we put on today. So I'm not going to mention that because that's a member trade, so you have to be a member to hear that trade. But really, I think that's where there's been some alpha to generate. Is by looking for names that are going to run into earnings, and we've certainly seen that in a number of names so far. So let me go just talk about how you can kind of take a look at some groups. Sorry, I've got the wrong symbol. I think it's TSS, is it, or TTS? TTS. Tile Shop, right? Big, a name that you probably off your radar for the most part, off my radar for the most part as well. But Tile Shop had good earnings, so this could really lift the whole group of specialty retails, specialty home improvement retailers, right? If you look at names like Floor and Decor, up big today, 2.4%. Even Lumber Liquidators, I think, caught a bit on that. Lumber Liquidators could be interesting if it gets above the 200-day moving average. But, really, so my point being is you don't have to participate in every name for earnings. You could kind of take and kind of pick apart some of the reports the next day, like GWW. We had a really nice trade on, first of all, in this GWW for earnings, which was basically through my whole call spread. So about a $500 winner, well, minus the premium, so about a $400 winner, just on one contract. It was the first time that I've played GWW for earnings, and really was a big hit. And then one of our members mentioned that, what was the name? What's the name? Danaher. DHR is a supplier to Granger, and we played this for earnings, which worked out really well as well. And I hedged this one pre-market to lock in the gains. So another one that we hit on very nicely. So just to kind of discuss today's market action, the Qs took a breather today. Again, I think this is perfectly normal. You're going to see a little bit of a rotation after, out of hot sectors. Amazon, I think, is a textbook trade. Every quarter it runs into the Prime Day, and then after the Prime Day numbers are announced, it's a little bit of a sell the news, right? And I think that's what's going on right now in Amazon and a couple of the other momentum names right now. A couple other names that really got beaten up pretty badly. IQ, which again, this is a very volatile name. It's going to move a lot. Back below the two short-term move, closed on the lows, back below the short-term moving averages. So you look at the Qs, right? And you're like, oh, geez, down 0.5%. That's a pretty ugly day, or not pretty ugly day, but a little bit of an ugly day. S&P down 35 basis points. However, look at how nice, and the VIX moved up. I talked about the VIX yesterday, how it was a really low level, not a place to really add risk when the VIX is around an 11 level. Well, it moved up today. It's up to 1287. It didn't close on the highs, but was pretty much pretty well bid all day today. And also VXN, which is the VIX for the Qs, finished up 5%. So again, I think it's just a little bit of a rotation. We've had a really nice swing the last couple weeks in the overall market. Let it chill out for a little bit. Let it breathe like a fine wine. IWM, sorry, uh, was up 70 basis points. Look at it, closed on the highs today. So, I see a lot of people, and again, I'm not trying to make fun of anybody. That's the last thing I try to do. But, sometimes the reason why I kind of talk about different points is you have to be able to broaden your horizons a little bit. I saw a lot of people just fighting with looking at trading. And I know there's a lot of S&P futures traders out there. I don't really agree with futures trading on the S&P. I think it's one of the most boring indices out there, but people do it. But why not trade the small caps? If you're going to trade futures, I mean, this has been really, really nice. Every time it kind of comes into a little bit of support, it's gotten bought. So you look at today and up almost 0.75%, stayed bid all day today from the lows to the highs. So really nice. So again, depending on what markets you're trading and how quickly you can rotate your positions or stay as nimble as possible, and all things that I've been talking about since the beginning of the week when I took off a lot of risk, the lower positions that you have on right now, the more that you could trade in and out of things. Why? Because you're not worried about some of the positions that you're on. Oh my God, is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? You can concentrate on the next latest and greatest trade. And the more nimble you are, the less positions that you have on, into, again, I think a choppy time of the year, the more that you can day trade and pick up on, momentum in different things. Also, so two other sectors to go over. Retail. This to me looks like a nice. We went over this in the trading room today. It looks like a nice cup and a handle. So really strong. MACD crossover. Right when it's getting ready to break out. There was a lot of shoe companies too that were doing really well. I was looking at, and I was making a joke this morning that sometimes you have to basically just not look at the symbol. Crocs. Right? I mean, do I want to put a big position on in Crocs? No, not necessarily. But if it's got some strength, I mean, look at how this has behaved around the 50-day moving average, which is the purple line on my charts. So this was the one chart that I sent out this morning. I said, look at this thing come onto the 50-day moving average. So it had a real nice day, and a day where the S&P as well as the Qs were down. And if you go across the shoe names, maybe this was a little bit because Skechers was reporting earnings today, which they fell flat on their face, by the way. So the momentum might come right out of this group. But, for day trading purposes or holding, from one day to the next, not a long-term trade. I mean, this is Steve Madden. Look at this Steve Madden. Another one, and you could go through, like Boot Barn had a nice day. Boot Barn. Look at DSW as well. So pretty crazy to see this group. Obviously there's some money rotating in. Another one, Duluth Trading, nice bull flag there. So pretty good looking. And then of course, I played Macy's a couple days ago. The trade actually didn't look like it was going very well, but look at Macy's with the MACD crossover today. So this was really nice. Kohl's has been performing pretty well. They kind of all look the same, don't they? So again, you don't have to take 3 or 4 positions in this stuff. If they're, sometimes they all go together, which is kind of what you're seeing, I think, in a lot of those, I don't know, specialty retail or retail types department stores. Very strong looking. Two names I haven't looked at, which I'll look at right now. TJX is doing fine as well. And then Ross Stores, which I view those two names as pretty good. Ross Stores also at a 52-week high. So look at that. That's also a nice looking cup and handle, kind of a version of it. So again, going back to retail, so today, you again, like I said, you look at the Qs and you look at SPY and you're like, oh geez, it must have been kind of a bad day for the market. No, it just seemed like there was some areas that were being rotated out of. And again, this group, I guess you could look at XLK too. It didn't even come off that much, but it's just got a little bit overbought. So again, these things, they don't go up in a straight line. People come in and they take profits. I think this is perfectly normal. And again, this is something that I've been preaching all week long. But again, very interesting to see small caps and retail do very well. Also, ITB, the home construction name, very interesting. This ETF, which I talked about yesterday, because there was a big call buyer in it. 62% of this ETF is home builders, and we saw a nice call buyer go up yesterday on weak housing numbers. So maybe this area is starting to bottom. Considering, sometimes when there's bad news on the tape and the stocks don't go down, that's a pretty good sign. Conversely, when there's good news and a name doesn't go up, then it's a bad sign. But bad news yesterday for the home builders, home data, and the stocks held in there fine. So I think this group is kind of bottoming a little bit, in my opinion. You could look at XHB as well, which has more retailers in it. Names like Home Depot, moved out across this recent high. I think we talked about this name yesterday too, but looking pretty strong and a nice swing up at this point. So, and then the last group I wanted to talk about, which went from, if you look at the XBI ETF, I didn't see where this finished. It finished positive. It started the day almost down 1% and came back. But look at this IBB ETF. Notice, of course, and I think this is perfectly normal for it to consolidate at this 52-week high, but this is a nice looking bull flag. I would pay attention to this group. They have a lot of names reporting next week. I think Celgene and Gilead is upcoming, as well as Alexion. ALXN also report. But it looks like this group is almost ready to break out. And again, a lot of sideways movement. Again, this is large cap, market cap weighted biotech. Very different than really where the strength has been in healthcare and biotech this year. PSCH is up 36%. Small cap healthcare, right? So again, if anybody tells you that there hasn't been a rally in biotech this year, they're not looking at the right stocks. Small cap healthcare up 36% year to date, and just continues to chug along, making another 52-week high. This was a great opportunity to buy, by the way, and we talked about that. Today's option activity, a little bit of dip buying in some names. Visa, a little bit of dip buying today, which, is such a strong chart. That seems to be the case. There's a little bit of dip buying in Caterpillar. But again, these are not, in my opinion, really quality trades today. More leaps going up in ATVI. A little bit of gold buying today on the dip. Again, they seem to be going out to December a lot in GLD. But, it's really tough to look at option activity right now because 80% of those trades that I have up there are names that are going to be reporting in about a week or so. I would say the two bright spots were Disney. Disney, we've been seeing some repeat call buying. I did not take this trade because it actually gave back a lot of profits. Because it's a deal name right now, and I just don't know enough about this deal stuff. It seems like every other day there's a headline about Disney, Fox A, and Comcast. So it's going to be whippy, depending on what the headline is. But they have been buying some October calls in Disney. I can't play this name with those headlines. Apple saw some dip buying. This was a name that I went long into the day. We found a nice risk to reward setup, which wasn't even me who found the calls that expire Friday for about 26 cents. We were able to take that off for around 50 cents today, and had a nice day all around, up 0.75%, right at the top of value. So we'll see if this can break out and have some further momentum, but there was some definite call buying, mostly adding. It looked like adding to positions. Most of the trades that we saw in Apple today had big open interest, but it did look like they were buying. I'll just glance at the names that reported earnings. Microsoft, I didn't know, but they don't give guidance until the earnings call, which starts at 5:30. So a weird reaction initially because they handily beat their numbers. Now, whether or not they should be up huge is another story, but they were traded all the way down to 102.60, 50. So if you bought down there, congratulations. But their numbers looked solid. So they don't give their guidance out to the call. So that should be interesting to see what they say there. I mentioned Skechers got smoked again for the second quarter in a row. Skyworks, which is I played both Microsoft and I played Skyworks. This one's looking good. We'll see how it shapes up after the earnings call and by tomorrow morning. I'm in call spread, so I can't really hedge it. If I was outright calls, I would be hedging it here, but I can't do that. I'm long the 103, 106 call spread. So it's right at my upper strike, which is perfect. I just need it to stay here by tomorrow's open. Easier said than done. E-Trade also reported earnings. Oh, the last thing I was going to say, which is weird that E-Trade had good numbers, but they moved down. I always try to point out things, observations when I see them. But AXP, be very mindful of when names rally into earnings. Look at what AXP did yesterday, and then it falls flat on its face. So when you see this going into earnings, it doesn't mean that buyers are really buying it up. I don't really have a great reasoning for it. Under normal circumstances, I would think it would be short covering going into an earnings report, but AXP does not have any major big short interest to it. It's just one of those things maybe you don't necessarily need to figure out why it is, but just recognize what the pattern is. Take a look at Skechers too. Look at what it did today. Now this is a name with a higher short interest, but for the last 3 days rallied, and then it falls absolutely flat on its face. So be mindful of when names rally into earnings. If I'm playing something to the long side, I would rather see it down on the day. ISRG, a good case of that, down 1.2% today. Up. So 542. So again, the reason why I point these things out is for you to kind of take note of it and basically learn from it. So that's it for today's call. Thanks very much and have a great night. See you tomorrow.